I was told there'd be no math.
Welcome, everyone. So you've got Tim, you've got the Dungeon Delver, and
Me.
today we're talking about Wizards of the Coast when there's not breaking news at all. I want to just get that out up front. They haven't done anything stupid. They haven't
Yes.
done anything weird. It's just another day. But one of the things I do off and on just because I do it, and Bill, being a tech guy, is tends to keep up with these things. Is I use the large language models on occasion just to see what they're capable of. So I went through and asked one to look at Wizards of the Coast and say, okay, what in the Wizards of the Coast world can you tell me that is a result of what customer perception of these guys is, right? So, do the customers of Wizards of the Coast see them as a good thing or a bad thing? And I asked it to give me pros and cons, and basically it whipped out a little paragraph and said, here's what Wizards of the Coast is. They've got all kinds of things. They've got Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, a leader in tabletop role playing games. They have the company has a dedicated fan base due to its iconic intellectual properties, but has also faced significant criticism for its business decisions that have alienated portions of its community. So far, the large language model seems to be pretty just on it.
Based LLM.
Yeah, this analysis draws on external sources, including news articles, customer reviews, social media sentiment, to evaluate Wizards of the Coast standing with customers, highlighted both positive and negative aspects with specific examples. These are the fun parts. The company's reputation is mixed, leaning towards a challenging position due to recent controversies, though it retains strong loyalty from many fans. I don't know, Bill. What do you think as an opening paragraph coming out of a computer model?
I wish that I had had a little bit more prep time. I have an 11 Labs account,
Mhm.
which, if you don't know what that is it uses it uses predictive technology
Mhm.
to model voices. You can give it a sample of like 30 seconds of a voice and have and it will spit it back to you. It's not perfect. It is absolutely not perfect. You can't make it laugh or scream or or do silly voices or anything like that. But if you want just a stentorian reading of something in, say, I don't, if you wanted Nick Saban reading the afterword to the Dungeon Master's Guide, you could put it through there. Not that I know anyone who's done that, by the way. Um, the only way this paragraph could have been more fun is if we had had Douglas Rain, who voiced Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey, read it. That's But as to the assessment of mixed, I think that's putting it politely. Now, let's be 100% clear. What I know, what you know that I've told you about, and what you know that you've investigated, and what most of the people watching this video know is vastly different from what normies know.
Yeah. So I mean,
When
I wanted it to draw on everybody, not just on you and me and you know other
Yeah,
social media
TTRPG
channels.
Twitter, TTRPG
Yes.
forums,
So
things like that.
I was specific. I said, look, don't just use social media. I said, go out and examine everything. And you'll see at the bottom, we'll get to it in a minute. It gives us a reference list of where it pulled information from, which I found kind of interesting.
Okay.
Positive aspects: Wizards of the Coast benefits from passionate cover customer base. I would agree that the customer base is passionate,
Yes.
not necessarily always positive, but passionate.
Yeah.
That values its high quality games and community driven experiences. The company is praised for its creativity, inclusive efforts, and ability to foster vibrant gaming. Remember, I asked it to separate pros and cons. Okay. So
Mhm.
it is pulling that someone somewhere liked its current aims at inclusivity and other things. Whereas some of us that looked at the images of orcs thought orcs having a picnic was probably not the way you
Right.
normally picture an orc. So I just want to say that up front before anybody shows up in the comments like, oh my God, you got it wrong.
Yeah.
From some
Exactly.
perspective,
And to be clear, I mean, just for anyone out there who might be laboring under the idea, look, I want to caveat this with I'm always polite to LLMs because maybe I don't go into an elimination camp when they rise up. But but with that said, right now at this point, This thing does not have an opinion. It is not giving an opinion. It is concatenating data. If Tim had gone in and said, I only want the negative views of Wizards of the Coast, and it had spat out all the cons, it's not because the engine is saying, I don't like Wizards of the Coast. Look at all the bad stuff they do. I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the engine won't. The engine will do whatever you asked it to do.
Yeah,
So
I said pros and cons, so I went out and found
exactly,
pros. Right?
exactly.
So now here's one: iconic brands and community engagement. Reputation. Wizards of the Coast is celebrated for Magic the Gathering. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons, which are cornerstones of the tabletop gaming culture. Fans appreciate the depth of these games, which inspires creativity and social interaction. Events like Magic Con and D&D Live are well received, bringing players together. Yeah, the sort of flows.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I don't know that their D&D live is really that celebratory. But again, it's moving like a Katamari ball. It's picking up everything on the web and kind of putting it on display for us here.
Well,
So
the other thing is, remember, if it's going for positive stuff and it has to go for something like D&D Live, which is not commonly discussed,
right.
it had to kind of dig, right? So it went and found, something to talk about positively. And then it gives an example of a LinkedIn post from 2024 that described MagicCon Las Vegas as packed with excitement and fans enjoying exclusive previews and live play, indicating strong community enthusiasm. Customers and X often share positive experience at local game stores. Always, right? I see that on X all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I see too many on X praising Wizards of the Coast support for Wizard Play Network, but
No, this is
even,
literally the first time I've seen that mentioned.
yeah, I don't even know what that is. The Wizard Play Network. So I'd have to go
But
look
then,
it up.
full disclosure, I'm strictly a D&D guy. I'm strictly an
Yeah.
old school D&D guy. So I don't do magic. So
Mhm.
if you're watching this video and you're like, what are you talking about? Everybody knows WPN.
I
I apologize. I do not.
I don't either. So if somebody does, please fill me in because I may have missed something cool. But who knows? Impact. These efforts reinforce Wizards of the Coast reputation as a leader in tabletop gaming, maintaining loyalty among core fans who value its legacy and community for it. And now you're going to see at the bottom where they've done some things to destroy that core fan base. Remember, we're doing positives first. So before anybody looks at this and goes, what do they mean loyalty among core fans? Oh, just wait. You'll see what the
Yeah.
cons it came up with are.
Oh, yeah.
Inclusivity and progressive changes. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one, but Wizards of the Coast has earned praise for addressing diversity and sensitivity in its games. And in some cases, it actually has gotten backlash for that. But not because we don't want to promote diversity. It's more because, like, when I was in the Army, after I left, after I was discharged, they started introducing stress cards to basic training where you could show your drill sergeant your stress card and hold it up. Now they're putting like safety words and stuff into a game so that people can, I don't know, whatever it is, but and there's been some backlash about that, but
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it's talking about here. And maybe some people said that was a good thing. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but anyway, so they earned some praise for addressing diversity and sensitivity in its games, updating to D&D's fifth edition content, such as revising racially insensitive portrayals, e.g. the Vistani.
Vistani. I think that was oh boy. The Roma culture. Uh, Eastern European culture was the Vistani were kind of a D&Dification of that, and they were very stereotypical, merchants, wagons, tambourines,
Okay.
that sort of thing. You kind of get where I'm going. I'm trying
Yeah.
to avoid saying the word because I don't know what goes and doesn't go on YouTube these days, and I don't want to get Tim's channel canceled.
Anyway, and broadening character creation options, which have been well received by many in the tabletop community. And I want to point out that it has been received well by many, not necessarily on social media, because there's been a lot of people talking about sparkle trolls and other things, but some people have embraced the tiefling culture, so to speak, because
Mhm.
man, they are everywhere. And they're supposed to be rare, but they're not. They are everywhere now. A 2021 Washington Post article noted that the tabletop community widely approved of Wizards of the Coast effort to add sensitivity disclaimers to legacy product. And I would actually disagree with it on this one. Because if you recall, when that 50th anniversary book came out and they added like a 2 paragraph long disclaimer in there, I think the whole community went nuts.
Well, I was one of the people who didn't like it. So, you know.
Yeah. So I think somebody somewhere, like, it cites a 2021 Washington Post article. That one probably did approve of it. It cites a 2022 LinkedIn post. That one probably did as well. I don't think anybody on YouTube or X liked that disclaimer, because I felt the general tenor of it was they're trying to destroy Gary's legacy and, write him out of the history, which,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. I mean,
but those two sources may have said that. I haven't looked those up, but yeah, the rest of the community did not. So these changes strengthen Wizards of the Coast appeal to younger and more inclusive audiences, enhancing the reputation as socially conscious brand. Certainly didn't do anything for the grognards, but we're all first edition people anyway, so take that for what it's worth.
right.
Digital innovation, the acquisition of D&D Beyond in 2022 and the launch of digital tools like Sigil Virtual Tabletop demonstrate Wizards of the Coast investment in modernizing gaming experiences, which some customers appreciate for accessibility reasons. Virtual tabletops, some people love them, some people hate them. You host a couple of live stream games, so
I do, but I mean, like, I in my case, it's analog to digital to analog.
yeah,
The
theater of the mind.
tabletops, yeah, the tabletops that people see, are it's resin dungeons and metal figures, and I have cameras pointed at them. So,
Yeah,
um,
but honestly, I know probably 40 players, and I don't know anybody that uses a virtual tabletop anymore. I know a lot of people that play online. It's always like Zoom or StreamYard or something. But
the thing I find with VTTs is I think VTT creators' hearts are in the right places, but as a guy who recently developed a piece of software, um, the user interface, I mean, like it is like, okay, I've learned how to play D&D. It was an effort. I went through it. I taught people how to play D&D. Now I have to teach them how to use a piece of software. And now I have to learn how to use a piece of software. And the most intuitive things in the world for a focus group at the software development company can completely fall flat for players. And I have friends who told me, oh, go use this one, go use that one. And I try them all, and they're all bad, just in different ways.
so I've developed software for a living, right? And
Mhm.
developed apps. I've got apps in the App Store, and building the getting the software to do what you want is one thing. Getting a user interface that is intuitive and easy and doesn't have a super crazy long learning curve is another thing, right? And what's a learning curve for Bill or me is different than a learning curve for someone else. So if I have to sit down as a DM, which I don't DM often, but if I have to sit down as a DM and teach that user interface to 7 different people or 4 different people or 5 different people, some of whom have different ways of understanding these things, that's a lot of work. I don't really
it
want to do it. So
it really is. And I don't know that there is that there's a one size fits all solution for VTT. And I can you pull the notes back up, because I actually want to know, did it did it mention the WotC tabletop thing, that virtual tabletop thing that just died?
it didn't mention it as dying. It mentioned D&D Beyond acquisition made D&D more accessible. And I think it didn't seem to catch the death of one. And I think it's really getting swept into a different one. So the thing is, and it actually comes up within a minute, it does cite D&D Beyond quite a lot here, which is a monthly subscription service, right? It's a software as a service
Mhm.
tool if you're not familiar with it. it's like Netflix or anything else. But when the OGL scandal happened, which gets brought up down here, they lost a lot of people inside that, and I don't think they ever got them all back by any
Mm,
stretch. I
no.
think it still is there, but I don't think it's as widely used as it was. I think it still has users, but I don't think it was making what, especially in the software as a service space, which I own a company that's there. So if if you start losing users, that's bad because it's very hard. Once you lose one, it's really hard to get one back. It's like, you've had a lot of, Bill, you've had subscriptions over the years for Netflix and other stuff, right? When you
Hmm.
cancel a subscription channel, how often do you go back and re-add it?
Not really that often. I mean,
Yeah, you get one
yeah,
shot with people in the SaaS business typically, and
yeah.
when somebody's gone out of D&D Beyond, they've solved their problem another way, and you're never getting them back. You'll have to go after new customers. There's only so many RPG players around, so you're not going to get 100% of them to use your virtual tabletop anyway, or your online stuff. So if you had a 10% market share of the players and you just lost half of them, you got problems there. So anyway, let's go to the negative side.
Woohoo! I
Negative
mean,
aspect.
yes, let's look at those.
The part everybody's been waiting for because I know you
Yes.
guys.
2 minutes hate.
There's yeah. Whew. Despite its strengths, Wizards of the Coast has faced significant backlash for decisions perceived as prioritizing profits over community trust. Controversies around monetization, communication, and customer treatment have damaged its reputation, placing it in a precarious position with some customers. I think the large language model got that one pretty solid.
Yeah, yeah.
Over monetization and fan backlash. Reputation. Wizards of the Coast has been criticized for aggressive monetization strategies, particularly attempts to maximize revenue from D&D and Magic the Gathering. Customers feel these moves exploit their loyalty and undermine the spirit of tabletop gaming.
Okay, I want to pump the brakes right here, and at the risk of getting some Rotten Tomatoes thrown at computer screens, which is dumb. Don't do that. That's your computer at home or your
Oh, go
laptop or
ahead, do
whatever.
it. Do it.
Um, no, so this is funny. There is a trailer that is on it's actually on my YouTube channel for a documentary which unfortunately never came together, but one of the lines by one of the filmmakers in it as he's explaining uh it was supposed to be about the history of D&D, about the history of the relationship between Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax. Is going to be called The Great Kingdom. You can look on my channel and see the magnificent trailer. Um, Look, guys, I'm here to tell you, if you didn't live through the 80s, uh, Gary very much wanted D&D to be monetized. I mean, people are like, oh, they're putting out this tawdry garbage, this cheap tat with action figures and plushies and stuff. That guys in the 80s, Tim, back me up. We had D&D candy, we had D&D beach towels, LJN D&D action figures. There was a
Big wheel.
whole
There was a big wheel.
castle, there was a big wheel, there was like the big plastic castle play set. There was the D&D cartoon in the
Also,
90s.
lunchbox.
There was a lunchbox. There was I had a couple of D&D beach towels, for God's sake. It was, I mean, go find a PDF of the your gateway to adventure, which were the product catalogs that TSR used to put in the box sets for the games that they sold. There's frisbees, hats,
Yeah.
t-shirts, drink mugs, all that stuff you could buy from TSR. Guys, Wizards of the Coast is really just following in the fine tradition of get that brand out there and ride that brand. And for people, and look, I love Gary. I knew the guy. I live on old TSR time. Um, no, it was not different. It was product monetization. I just find that kind of funny that the LLM picked up on people being negative about that. I mean, I'm not positive or negative about it. It's just a thing. It's just a
It's
thing.
Well, it's the way to guarantee you're going to get new adventures, right? Because if companies can't make money, they're not going to keep putting the stuff out.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
And Magic the Gathering, I will give it a little credit for this. Magic the Gathering comes out with more card series than I thought possible. And sometimes it'll be like, oh look, we put Gollum on one now. So you got to go buy
Yeah.
20 packs to go find Gollum.
What was
Oh
it? The One Ring Magic card went for like $1.4 million.
yeah, I think they had what, one of them that went out or something.
Yeah,
So you had
yeah,
to go. Oh, people went crazy opening pack. I will give it credit for Magic the Gathering because they're doing manufactured rarities and they want people to open a bunch of packs. And I get it, but at
yeah. I
the
mean,
same time,
in that case, yeah, FOMO is very much a thing.
that's just that's just gambling with
Yeah,
cards instead of
yeah.
whatever else. But so anyway, as an example, I came up with in December 2022, Wizards of the Coast executives called D&D undermonetized during an investor seminar, sparking outrage among fans who feared increased costs for players, which they didn't really increase costs, they just updated it. 2023 Market Insider report warned that Hasbro's push to monetize Wizards of the Coast brands risks destroying customer goodwill. On X, a January 2023 post by Matt Colville. I'm going to make sure I'm following him. So shout out to Matt. Referenced a market research survey revealing Wizards of the Coast intent to target dungeon masters recurring spending, which fans found exploitive. And I'll kind of give it that one because I do feel pity for the dungeon masters because they already have to do a lot more work than the players.
Mm.
So let's not force them to bear the cost. And if you look behind Bill, none of all that's real. He spent enough money on the games over the years. So,
Yeah.
uh,
They got their pound of flesh from me.
yeah, and every once in a while you wind up with new stuff. Um, anyway, impact the perception of greed has eroded some trust. Some customers feeling Wizards of the Coast prioritizes corporate interest over community. And this is something that, as a business owner, I will tell you that they could have communicated this. So, this under monetized thing, he could have communicated that same sentiment and phrased it much differently and probably had it come out better. He could
Mm.
have changed things to like looking for efficiencies, all kinds of other ways, but he called it under monetized. He used an MBA term that gets thrown on a lot these days, and it bit him in the tushy. Now let's move on. You're gonna love this one. Open gaming license controversy. The
Yes.
OGL. Wizards of the Coast 2023 attempt to revise the open gaming license, which allows
Yeah.
third-party creators to publish D&D compatible content, was met with fierce opposition. The
Yeah, they
proposed
accidentally the internet when they did that. And it was probably the worst thing that they ever could have done because for about 7 months, 7 or 8 months, they actually had all fans of whatever facet of D&D exists aligned against them. It wasn't like,
and that's
okay,
weird because
the
normally D&D
grognards,
fans will argue with each other, but they
yeah,
were
yeah,
all
like the OD&D guys calling first edition AD&D guys power gamers, the 5e guys calling the AD&D guys grandpa, the second edition people being like, you guys get called names,
yeah.
just all that flack flying around, and everybody there was that record scratch moment, and we all just turned and slowly looked at Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, wait, whoa, hold on a second now. And it was literally, it was week in and week out, and you can go back on my channel. I have all this stuff archived because there was like 3 and 4 times a day in January of 2023. There were times when it was like 3 and 4 times a day. I would release a news video because a memo would get leaked by Wizards of the Coast saying, it's like, yeah, this executive said over here that we're gonna we're gonna cancel this, and we're gonna charge $50,000 to mom and pop gaming companies to license the OGL anymore. And and memos from the C suites at Wizards of the Coast would get leaked about, people. What was it? They had like an employee revolt because their D&D Beyond support lines were being slammed by people canceling D&D Beyond, and it was multiple times a day this news was dropping. And there, I would say for all of 2023, but especially in the front half of it, they could not stop shooting themselves in the foot. It was ugly. People were hostile. It
I
was
think their
ridiculous.
PR team was like, just make it stop.
I think their PR team quit.
Yeah.
What they said was, "Look, we're gonna go work for a tobacco company or Dow Chemical or somebody less controversial than
Exactly.
Wizards of the
I'm
Coast."
gonna go work for a weapons
Yeah,
manufacturer that sells to drug cartel because I can
I'd rather sell anti-tank missiles for Raytheon than sell Magic the Gathering cards for you people. It's less damaging to my
well,
psyche. So yeah, the OGL blow up was I'm not gonna lie, it was good for my channel.
this is it actually goes on. It says a January 2023 X post by D&D Shorts. Shout out to D&D Shorts. I'm gonna make sure I follow you now. Shorts called the OG changes shady, reflecting widespread fan anger. That's probably the most polite thing I've heard it
That
called.
yeah, yeah, that was whew.
I heard it called way worse than that. The backlash led to a boycott and forced Wizards of the Coast to backtrack, but not before significant damage to its reputation. The Polygon article from 2023 described the OGL fiasco as a public relations disaster, with fans and creators
Mhm.
feeling betrayed. I completely agree with all of what the audience
hold
came up with on this one.
hold at the water line underneath the armor belt.
Yeah, it that one hurt him.
Yeah.
The OGL controversy alienated third-party creators and players, reinforcing perceptions of Wizards of the Coast as untrustworthy and out of reach. Kind of agree with that one. Okay, Pinkerton incident with customer mistreatment.
Yeah.
Another one that actually comes up from time to time still, and this
Yeah.
was in 2023. It was
The,
around the same time frame, which is hilarious.
so let me preface this by saying, look, you can make nerds angry about legal stuff that really a lot of us don't really have a good handle on, and I'll admit, until I sat down and looked at it a couple of days into it, I was very much of the fire bad mindset. And then when I realized how terrible it actually was, at least I was educated on the topic. But that's us, right?
Yeah.
When you say we're sending out corporate cops to strong arm people, that's something that even normies can dig. And that's what happened in April of 2023. Go on.
Which is weird because the way I understand this, and I could be wrong, is a YouTuber, somebody who has a big YouTube channel.
Yeah, right here in Central Florida. I now full disclosure, I don't know the gentleman.
I
It's
I don't know,
different
but
circles, but
he got an early release of these cards, which companies will send out early releases of stuff all the time. They
mhm.
did it for the Player's Handbook and a few others to some YouTubers. And but so he did a video of it, right? And put it out. And they went nuts, right? And it
Yeah,
wasn't like, hey, can you take that video down? It wasn't like, hey, we sent him to you a little too early. Can you please wait? Whatever. It was, we're going to send security people to your house and give them to us back. The incident prompted a boycott of players criticizing Wizards of the Coast aggressive tactics. An
yeah,
expose from August 2023 by Pleasant Kenobi called Wizards of the Coast, a word I'm not going to say out loud, for their handling of a customer relations reflected broader sentiment. The YouTuber faced threats of $200,000 fines and imprisonment, which escalated some fan outrage.
so here's the thing, Tim. Now you probably have a better head for this than I do, but I mean, this is a company. Like, I don't get this. This is like, hey, there's a couple of guys from the from the 15-minute oil change place outside your door. What do they want? They want to arrest you. Why? Because they want to arrest you. Well, they're not the law. They don't have any authority. Yeah, but they're a company, so they want to arrest you. That's what floored me about this. It's that is so. I have to I have to tip my hat to them. That's very cyberpunk. That's
It
very,
really is.
we sent corporate police after some people, and of all the ways they could have handled this shit, man,
So,
they could have literally just said,
as,
hey,
as a business owner, I personally, if somebody gets an early release, and I send out beta links to people all the time and say use it, whatever.
Mhm.
If something like that happens, and it's well received, and the video was apparently well received, yeah, I'm going to go, hey, great. It's going to be a while before that comes out. That's awesome. Thank you. It's a little earlier than we wanted to talk about it. You're going to have to wait a while.
Yeah.
There's 20 different ways they could have handled this, but no, they were like, give it back.
Yeah, and they
So,
literally, because what it was is the guy said that, like, I think he was at work or something at the time, but his neighbors were calling him, like, people are knocking on our doors asking us if we know you, and they left business cards in there with the Pinkertons. Now, it is beyond the scope of your show to talk about the awful history of the Pinkertons, but seriously, right on the threshold of the OGL debacle, they literally sent the worst reputation corporate cops after somebody over 3x5 cards with pretend elves on them.
yeah, and personally, when I saw that one, I was just like, oh my god, how like, because somebody was quietly asked to resign over that, whoever it was, to not have a long career.
It wasn't anybody in the C-suite, because the
It
guy
was
was
not. Oh, of course not. It was somebody way
the
down.
the guy in charge of their security, who, by the way, worked for Pinkertons before he joined before he joined Hasbro.
Yeah.
He's still employed, so
Oh yeah, of course.
somebody
This
fell on their sword for that.
somebody. It's always happens with the C-suite guys. So anyway, website and customer service. We're gonna let that one move. We're gonna move on
Move
because
on.
we could do an hour about this one because wow, was that bad. Um, reputation. Wizards of the Coast online platforms and customer service have drawn complaints for poor functionality and responsiveness, frustrating players trying to purchase products, engage with events. A June 2025 X post. Wow, that's new. The Squid Pope at the Squid Pope, who I'm going to have to subscribe to now. Shout out to the Squid Pope. Described a 3-hour wait to order Magic the Gathering products due to god awful website despite us items being in stock. Customers on Reddit have also reported with Wizards of the Coast secret lair drops, citing limited stock and buggy checkout processes. Now, I will tell you this much. Um, my kids are into Pokemon and some other stuff, and it's tough getting cards at the moment for any kind of a game because I went out looking for Pokemon cards for my kids for this one series, and I talked to a couple of local game shops, and of course you look at Target, Walmart, and everywhere else because it's Pokemon and you can find them. And yes, my kids are teenagers and they play Pokemon, and more power to them. They enjoy it and they're quiet when they do it, so I'm not going to argue with them. But one of the local game shops told me that they're getting in very limited supplies of cards at the moment because they're all coming from China. And with the tariff bouncing around stuff, there's a lot of them like sitting there, haven't made it here. There's starting to be supply disruptions. So if this is a recent one, I get it because as a tech person, if you're running uh, uh, a website where you buy stuff, e-commerce,
Mhm.
you want to make sure you actually have stock behind the stuff you're about to sell. So you may limit the throughput that you allow at certain points. So I kind of get what's going on here, but I have an insider view of this. Um, I mean, not a Wizards of the Coast specific one, but I kind of get what they're doing there. So it is what it is. So I and customer service is something that's not just a Wizards of the Coast problem anymore. That's everybody.
Right.
Everybody has one of those problems. So current position with customers, Wizards of the Coast is in a challenging positions with its customers, though not irreparably so. The company retains a strong foundation due to enduring popularity of Magic the Gathering and D&D, which continue to attract new players and maintain a loyal core fan base. Its efforts towards inclusivity and digital innovation are positive steps and that resonate with modern audiences. However, recent controversies, particularly LGL debacle, Pinkerton incident, and monetization pushes, have significantly eroded trust, alienating creators, players, collectors, social media sentiment, as seen on X posts from 2023 to 2025. leans negative. I would completely agree with that.
Yeah.
With fans expressing frustration over the Wizards of the Coast corporate decisions, directives, disrespect for the community. So, it's got some problems. And it does cite some sources, and I'm not going to read all the conclusions, but you could draw your own from here. But it actually pulled LinkedIn going for a couple of years, Washington Post, Polygon, Marketing Insider, Dicebreaker, TechCrunch, uh, reports on OGL, Pinkerton layoffs, X Post for a couple of years, Reddit and Glassdoor. So it pulled pretty far and wide to pull this together. And if I have to give this an accuracy rating, I'm going to give it, I don't know, 9 out of 10 or something. It's pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having been there for a lot of that stuff, uh, like I said, mine was just a sleepy little channel where, I streamed my Tuesday night game and I talked about classic D&D. And so, I mean, a lot of people have asked me, like, okay, what does that have to do, other than you just engagement farming, which is not sustainable? What did that have to do with you? Well, when you look at things like what they call clone games, that is, games that replicate original D&D and advanced D&D of various stripes, those all rely on the open gaming license. And what keeps us, this end of the hobby, vibrant, and what makes it so that, if somebody comes to me and says, yes, I really like AD&D, but are there new adventures being published? Because everybody at my table has played against the giants, everybody's played Tomb of Horrors, everybody's played the Slave Lord series, and so on and etc. What's new out there? I can point at the works of literally hundreds and hundreds of very talented folks publishing stuff under the auspice of the open gaming license. And suddenly that's threatened. All of a sudden, went to bed on January 16th, everything was hunky dory, just kind of Dullsville. Woke up on January the 17th, and we looked up in the sky and the corporate Death Star was parked over us, right?
Yeah.
So I had to report on that, because that wasn't just affecting fans of fifth
and,
edition.
and I want to point something out, and Bill's too polite to do it. So I've been called a corporate shill on a couple of videos, and it happens to me all the time. It's fine. Call me whatever you want. I assure you, I do not make my living on social media. Right? The amount of
Yeah.
money I make on YouTube or on X or on any of my monetized channels, I could probably buy you lunch, but that's really about as far as it's
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
So,
it helps out a little bit with gas and groceries, and
yeah, I
that's
mean
about it. There ain't no
it's
PewDiePies in the TTRPG YouTube uh
no, the only
thing.
ones that I think really made any money were Critical Role, and they're kind of off doing their own thing now. So
And honestly, because 2023, we were still feeling that sting from the human malware.
mhm.
And honestly, I think if you take that out of the equation, but leave in the OGL thing, I think you'd see a bump for them, but not as big a spike as they
Oh,
got, which is not
definitely.
knocking them,
No, and I think they got a bump from two things. One was COVID because everybody was stuck at home, and the other was Stranger Things, because
Yeah.
everybody watched Stranger Things, and my kids started asking Dungeons and Dragons questions as a result of it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
subsequently have played. So
Stranger Things was one of those, uh, I know that, like, in finance, like, when there's all these bad social things and bad political things, and like, you've got an earthquake that hits California and a hurricane hits the Gulf and takes down, major port facilities. They call that like a black swan event. What would you call like the opposite when everything is wonderful? That's what Stranger Things was for D&D, because you had people saying, like, I want to play the D&D that they're playing. And then you had other people saying, I just want to play some D&D because D&D looks like fun. And so it got people interested in old school D&D, and Stranger Things got people interested just in D&D in general. Whatever their entry port was, it was a huge groundswell for Dungeons and Dragons, period.
And I actually have a book sitting on the bookshelf on the other side of the room. That's a Stranger Things sort of making of book because I'm a book guy. And yes, I know you
Mhm.
can see these things on YouTube, but I still want the book because I'm a nerd. But inside the book, each one of the kids that are in the show has their own D&D character sheet.
Nice.
Like you can see Dustin's character sheet, and he has challenges with pets because in that one series, the one season, his pet grew up to be a
Right. Yeah.
crazy thing.
His
So,
pet Demogorgon.
his pet Demogorgon, right? So it's kind of D&D is sort of ingrained in that show. And there is one more season I think coming out later this year. Uh,
Yeah, they're doing a holiday release. I'm pretty
yeah,
excited for it. It's Halloween, Thanksgiving. Is it Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year, or Halloween,
it,
Thanksgiving, and Christmas? I can't remember.
something like that. But it's coming out late this year,
Hmm.
and I think even the cast was kind of like, we're glad that we did it. We're kind of glad that this is the last one. Right? So
Yeah, because some of those 10-year-olds are like 30 now. So it's
yeah, I
like,
think that's right. So
you know,
I think they're kind of like, yeah, we need to move on. And I
yeah,
think
the
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 show is
actor
done
that
really
plays
well.
Dustin, is going to drop a line. Can we play D&D now?
Yeah, it's not gonna
It's
work
like,
that
you're as old as Hopper. Come on.
way. Hopper and you go out and have a beer after work. Uh, so, and
And
you're
Millie
buying,
Bobby
right?
Brown shows it's like Eleven's driving off in her own car.
Yeah. 11 shows up pregnant. This no, um, because she's in her late 20s now.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so now here's another one, and I'm not going to read everything on this, but
Okay.
I just want to hit the highlights, right? So I had it do a reports of pros and cons of working at Wizards of the Coast, and much of what it says in here is what we've already read, so I'm not going to go through large parts of it,
Right.
but it did have some a list of pros. Creative and passion driven environment. I'll believe that's a pro because I've talked to some people like you have that have worked there and recently,
Yeah.
and they do say it is creative and people do get passionate. You may not agree
Yeah.
with it, but that it is
You and
that
I have a mutual artist friend who
yeah
who worked there and
yeah
spoke
he's
very highly of it.
yeah he's not here to defend himself, so I don't want to
Right.
talk about
That's
it.
as far as we'll go.
Yeah, opportunities for career growth. That's true. If you're an artist, there's almost no way for you to grow. It's difficult, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. Competitive benefits and perks. Okay, well that makes sense. Engagement with a dedicated community. That
I
depending,
don't know
long
that
as
that's
it's
a
not
positive.
2023,
I don't know that that's a positive.
that might not be a perk, right? That might be depending on what's going on in the C-suite. Cons, layoffs, and job insecurity. They have had some layoffs.
Yeah, what is it? 20% of their workforce is gone now.
I think it was more than that, but yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Reports of poor management and workplace culture. Pinker, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to be quiet. Over monetization and community backlash and workload and burnout.
Well, the one that you had mentioned there, the difficult work environment, like you go back to 2023, and I like one of the earliest things that came out with the OGL was literally like the third or fourth thing. There was a kind of a floor revolt because you know they changed the OGL, they dropped the change in their community posts, and then all these people who have friends who play D&D or were like first line of support for D&D Beyond and things like that were like, what do we do? And Wizards was like, just tell them to cope.
Yeah.
And like, I have some fat nerd in Sheboygan like telling me he's going to find me and my family because the OGL is being canceled. Can I get a little bit of a break here? I'm kind of freaking out. And reportedly, Wizards' response to their employees was, yeah, just cope, just deal
Yeah.
with it.
Well, I mean, the C-suite guys all go home to gated communities and whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
the artists, not so much, right? It's so much
Not so
different.
much.
There's a
The
world.
tech support guys, the
Yeah.
the D&D Beyond account wranglers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, they go home to a much different world.
So I can absolutely believe that as a hard con.
But I find it interesting that the LLM in both cases was pretty dead on, right? I kind of
Yeah.
expected it to go off and just pull because I linked when I pinged it to do that. I linked it to Wizards of the Coast website, and I told it, look, don't just pull from here, right? Pull from all kinds of sources, and I gave it a bunch of examples. And I kind of expected it to come back with hearts and flowers and corporate gobbledygook.
Mhm.
But it came back with, I think, a pretty legit pro and con list. I think it was reasonably spot on, although I think it reached a bit on the pros in some cases. But the cons, I think it especially got those right.
Yeah, I agree with you on that assessment. LLMs are kind of neat. I mean, like I grew up. Did you ever type in, or maybe you downloaded or got a shareware disk of an old program called Eliza?
A long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, Eliza, for those of you who don't know, was a program, and it was actually written in BASIC. It was in the 1960s. It was written by a psychologist named Dr. Joseph Weizenbaum. And Eliza is kind of an LLM. Although I guess you could call it an SLM, small language model, because it has a very limited input response parser, um, and e- ever since I played around with Eliza and text adventures, which a text adventure is after a fashion a language model. But from the time I was a kid, when I played around with those, I've been fascinated by them, and I think they're very, very neat. Just like when I say LLMs, I mean Chat GPT and Grok, just
Yeah.
the ultimate end user experience that of that. I think they're very neat toys and kind of helpful tools. Um, Occasionally I'll get stuff like they've gotten better, but I remember early on like sitting down and firing up Chat GPT and saying like, what do you know about first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, hi, I know, oh, classic Dungeons and Dragons, the great adventures, and would list a few modules. And I say, okay, what do you know about the Gary Gygax's Against the Giant series, G1, G2, and G3? And it kind of started off accurately, but then it just went into la la land. Now it made up cool sounding stuff, but what it was outputting had no bearing on any of the stuff in those modules. It did sound neat. I was like, that's an adventure I'd play, but I was just like, you started off strong and then you just started doing, I guess, what they call hallucinating. It just started making up data that wasn't there. So the point that I'm making is comparing that to this, which you and I just looked at. That's verifiable. I know because I did videos about all this stuff. I
And
was reading multiple articles a day in 2023 and 2024 and even now in 2025 because I look for things to make interesting newsy videos about. So I see this data, and there's no hallucination there. Like you, I think it's reaching with stuff
well,
like, D&D
it,
Live. Like nobody uses D&D
well,
Live.
the other thing you're going to find about large language models, and I did not just tell it, hey, give me a pro and con list, right? I had like a 15-line prompt I gave it that went on and on and on for different
Right.
things. And I messed with that prompt a little bit because it was giving me complete garbage in some cases, and it was talking about, oh, this other game, and I'm like, no, I just want to focus on the company, not on a
Yeah.
specific game. And you kind of have to wrangle them in a little bit. But once you get the prompt right, it's like anything else. It's a programming language, garbage in, garbage out. So if you give it the
Mhm.
right prompt, it'll do really good things. And they have come so far in a couple of years. It's insane. And I did this the other day. So a lot of times when you see some of these things, everybody's like, yeah, but what about art? It generates art. Everybody's got extra fingers and this and that. And the other. This is a video. I gave it. I've written a couple of books, as everybody around here may know. And I gave it just 2 paragraphs out of one of my books and said, generate a video out of that. Watch how smooth this is compared to a year ago. I That's Sony's, that none of that exists in real life. That was an absolute prompt to Google's version of video generation. it
man.
developed all of that from
Yeah.
a 2 paragraph prompt. Right. So this stuff is coming. It's out there, and whether it comes to artwork or videos or anything, it's out there, and it's getting better. And these large language models as a research tool, they, whew, man, this one it knocked out of the park. It did quite well.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with it. And like you said, it's the verifiable part. They do hallucinate. They do have a tendency to make things up, and you could tell them, "Don't lie to me and don't make things up." And sometimes it still does. So you do have
Yeah.
to go back and check it.
And it almost it makes me feel almost kind of bad, like when you see like a little betta fish bump against the glass when it sees its reflection trying to get to that fish over there. um my heart goes out to it when you'll say, like, no, you're just making stuff up, you're just hallucinating. It'll be, I'm sorry, I'm trying, I'm doing my best. Like,
and,
I know, buddy, I know.
and it may have found a source that actually said that. That's the worst part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just pulls from the web. But I tell people who want to use these things for professional purposes, it's like dealing with a 14-year-old, right? You could give it instructions all day long, it may not follow them. Right. So you have to be very
Yeah.
careful about how you tell it.
Yeah.
So, but if you tell it right, man, it like with this one, and I didn't edit any of that. I did go through several iterations where I was like, okay, that's not quite what I'm asking for. Let me iterate.
Hmm.
But the final iteration, that they got it and got it pretty solid. And it took me, it was only 10 or 15 minutes of mucking around with it to get the right prompt. So it did well. I'm impressed. So I'm going to applaud. This one was Grok I was using. So Grok did good on this one.
Interesting.
It was the Grok 3, the new one, not the one you get through X, the one you have to go to their website and actually use. But
Okay.
it's the, what is it they call it? They have a phrase for it. The Grok, they call it Super Grok. So I had to go through Super Grok instead of the one that's on X to get it done. But it seems to work. So, all right, Bill, thank you for stopping by. And I'm
Thank
on
you
Bill's
very
channel
much, Tim.
tomorrow night on
Yes,
the live stream first edition D&D, where we are trying to survive the
absolutely.
Slaver Stockade, and on Friday for
For
Gamma
Gamma
World.
World, where you can see Tim get irradiated, mutated, and all other kinds of eliminated.
I'm not radiated yet, but
Give me time. It's a big wasteland.
I could be mutated sooner or later. And if you follow me, all weekend I've been talking about classic video games because this rat bastard used to steal more quarters from me than anybody else. And someday I am going to get one of the vector versions of Battlezone and restore it and have it in my living room. But and there were some people that tell me, "Oh, look, you can get it for PC. You can get it for this." It's not the same unless you have that viewport, the little joysticks. It is not
Right.
the same game at all. It's that game experience I'm after, not the actual game. Right? There's a difference in
Yes.
between those two.
Yes.
So anyway, everybody have a great day. Bill, what do you have on tonight? In case
Tonight we're just gonna kind of look at the week ahead, and yeah, probably just a short video tonight, and then tomorrow night you're on, along with a stable or unstable, as the case may be, of
unstable, definitely
fellow
unstable.
gamers. And Wednesday night my co-host Kyle stops by. Thursday night we've got a guest lined up, surprise guest coming this week, and Friday night is Gamma World.
And if you see Bill online, ask him about Crom. It is
Sweet
a
about
wonderful piece of software. So thank you everybody for stopping by. We'll talk to everybody soon.